Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Project podcast by Andrea Bosco and Dr. Shar Ray. I'm Andrea Bosco,
And
and we have,
I'm Dr. Charray.
yes, and we are so happy to be here with you today to discuss this really, really important topic. I feel like we say this every day, every podcast. We're talking about important topics, and it usually comes up with stuff that we're dealing with in our own lives that we hope are going to resonate with you. So make sure you're following us. So click that follow button and please comment on our information, send us a message on Instagram, find us wherever you socialize in that world. We're out there, so please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So today's topic is getting out of your comfort zone. And this is something we talk a lot about with the students that we work with, especially because a lot of the students we work with are in grades 11 and 12, and they are preparing for their future careers, or most of them are doing special programs in high school to help them uh, figure out what they want to do after high school. And a lot of them are living in their comfort zone. Let's face it. They're grade 11s and 12s. They're used to high school now. They have their friends and they don't really understand the idea of getting out of that space that feels super comfortable in order to continue to grow and continue to learn. And I don't think this is only a teenage thing. I think a lot of us as adults, we tend to stay in that safety and secure place that we know versus stepping out and exploring other opportunities out of fear. And there's so much that fear can encompass, whether it's fear of failure, right? Fear of failure is massive. Fear of the unknown. Um,
Fear of being judged.
yeah, fear of being judged, right? So there's, so many reasons why we tend to stay in that space of comfort versus leveling up and reaching our full potential in life. And I know even for you and I, Shar, when we started this company, the Empowerment Project, it was a massive leap of faith.
Oh,
Both of us coming from our own careers in our given fields and now coming together and having really no idea. We knew what we wanted to talk about. We had no idea how it was going to happen.
yeah.
And I mean, I guess I'm grateful for whatever reason. My personality has always been kind of a get it done kind of thing, and not to worry about the steps in between too much, but focus on the intention that I'm putting out there and to just do the darn thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know where that came from. I feel like I've always had that, and I'm grateful for it because I know a lot of people struggle with that and they'll make up million excuses, or we tend to have to make everything perfect before we then take that step forward. Like, okay, let me make sure I have my business plan completed at to 100%, make sure I speak to all these people and get all this advice, and make sure I you know, have all my ducks in a row before I can pull the trigger.
Right.
But what tends to happen is we
We
not
get cold
waste.
feet. We get
Yeah, we
cold
get
feet.
cold feet and we're like, you know what? I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to stay comfortable. I'm just going to stay comfortable because, hey, I'm getting my needs met, which is great. Getting all your needs met. You have a roof over your head, food on the table, all that good stuff. but are you sitting too much in that space and not opening yourself up to what actually could be?
Adrian, it's so funny that you're saying that because I mean, you and I, it's funny. You're in a low, I'm in a high, I'm in a low, you're in a high. So we've been able to pick each
Yeah,
other up from whenever we're feeling a little uncomfortable, right? Like, so, and I'm going to use the example of starting the podcast. Do you remember when we were
yeah.
putting out that first podcast? And I'm like, I don't think you can put that out there. I think we need to re-record it. I don't like the way I sounded. I don't like what I said. And then you were like, and so again, my fear was I'm really comfortable being small and I'm really comfortable with just people knowing who I am in the space that I've already created. But I don't want to grow. I don't want it to reach a lot of people. Like, what are people going to say? And so that whole judgment piece came in, that
Mhm,
whole worth and value came in. Like, why is what I have to say so important? And then here you are just saying, Shar, it's our first podcast.
mhm.
It's not going to be perfect, but it's better that it's done than perfect. And you need to really explore why you're feeling that way. Like those were your words of advice. And it was true. Like after you had that conversation with me and kind of knocked some sense into me, what came up was judgment. So it's why I shared that earlier when you were talking, because that was my biggest fear was I'm going to be putting myself out there and I'm going to be judged.
Yeah,
I'm going to be judged for the way that I sound, for the information I'm putting out there, for the things that I said or how I sounded, and I had to get over it. So
yeah.
that was me getting out of my comfort zone because, again, podcasts are such a great way to share information. It reaches different people because, as you and I know, the information that we do share is very restricted to schools, right? So who do we see in
Mhm.
schools? We see students, we see teachers, sometimes the parents, principals, but now we've got you know, a family and friends and groups of individuals that are also interested in hearing what we have to say. So it's a great platform, right? It's a great platform. So for me, stepping out of that comfort zone of doing the podcast was huge and it was so uncomfortable. But thank goodness for you that you were able to kind of slap me around a little bit and say, "Get yourself together, Shar." and then and then here we are, right? 4 podcasts in, I think.
Yeah, yeah, about that. 5th? This will be our 5th where
Oh, okay,
this will
great.
be our 5th
Perfect.
one.
Yeah.
So, and no, you're absolutely right, and I think asking ourselves, right, like, what is it that's causing us to hold back?
Mhm.
And, um, in a way, yeah, like, it has to do with character, it has to do with maybe upbringing, what we've heard people say, what we've observed, our own hangups, whatever it is, right? And I'm not saying go blindly. I'm not saying, don't prepare or don't do the work and gain the knowledge before putting something out there in a way, but a lot of times we use that as an excuse. Like we can be forever students. And maybe some of you know these people that they just continue to go to school or take courses and read books, and it's this constant student world, which is beautiful. Like we are all students of life all the time, but it's holding them back from launching something. It's like, I just got to get this one course and then I'll feel like I'm ready to do that. And I can relate in a way in that space too, because I have definitely dealt with imposter syndrome in my life. It came up for me this week when we were dealing with something professionally. And um, I have to sort of check myself in the sense like that little person in my head saying, who are you to teach this stuff? What credentials do you have? What certifications or whatever people feel like they need to have in order to lead others, in order to share your knowledge, right? And it's often held me back. Now, most of you know that I'm a yoga instructor. I've heavily studied the yoga philosophies in doing a full 200-hour training. I've done extra. I'm probably up to about a 350, 400-hour training. Um, but having that under my belt is lovely. I feel very confident, but I sometimes feel like, oh, maybe I should have taken philosophy or psychology courses or counseling or psychotherapy or whatever it is. And, yeah, I'm not saying that wouldn't have added to my credentials or whatnot, but I think in order to teach and lead others, and we teach this in our courses, is you need to lead in your own life,
Mhm.
right? You need to learn how to lead your your life, your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. You need to understand that about yourself. And listen, I'm not saying that all of our teachers out there don't do this, but there's a lot of people trying to teach us things that have very little self-awareness of themselves or very little practice in their own lives. But
Mhm.
because they have certificates hanging on the wall, we feel we need to believe them more than others that are implementing this stuff on a day-to-day basis. So if there's something you're trying to launch, maybe you want to become a writer, maybe you want to become a coach in any space, and you're kind of hesitant because you're like, I need all of this extra knowledge and all these extra little things to validate who I am. I want you to ask yourself deep down, like, truly, what do you have to offer from experience? And that's what I feel I have a lot of. I mean, I'm still experiencing things, but I have a lot of my experience, but from your own experience, from your own deep rooted value system, that is so important in any way of leadership, right? I'm sure a lot of people have become CEOs and managers and VPs of companies, and they were never taught how to do that. They kind of learned along the way because they were open to it. And that really is leadership, is being open to learning and bringing your best self forward and knowing who you are, right? Know who you are so that way you can share your gifts in that amazing way. And also, knowing who you are is also knowing who you aren't and
Yeah.
what you need help with. So maybe you know that you're not a techie. So if this venture you're trying to get out there involves a lot of tech, maybe you're going to hire someone to do your tech. Or maybe you're just not an organized person in your scheduling and you need to hire someone to help you organize your schedule or do your social media, or you know understand where you have your strengths and where you have your stretches so that you can bring in that help, because we all need support. Leaders all need support, and a lot of them end up bringing in people that are more skilled than they are in these areas, and that's how they succeed. I mean, people like Elon Musk and even Steve Jobs at his time, and Bezos and all these, from what we could look at as successful leaders, they didn't do it on their own. They brought in people to help them, but they had a vision, and they didn't let their hangups or their setbacks stop them from moving forward. They kept moving forward.
So, you know what? I wanted to just add to what you're saying because you're right. We do all have hangups and things that, hold us back. But I think one of the big things to remember is everyone's kind of resonating at a different place. And you need to be resonating at a place where you're ready. Because let's
Mhm.
be honest, if you are let's say you're a new parent, right? And you have this baby and you're now on a mat leave or a pat leave. Um, and you realize that, hey, you know what, I might not want to go back to work. Yeah, maybe it's not the right time for you to start building a new venture, but maybe it's time for you to be thinking about what you could potentially want to do. And listen, I understand that you're not going to be you might not be ready right now as we're having this conversation and we're doing this podcast. You might not be ready. The whole point of this conversation is to plant the seeds and for you to know that no matter where you start, you're going to be okay. It might be today, it might be tomorrow. But if these are the things that you're thinking about and you have the time and you're ready, think about the things that might be holding you back, right? Like, I
Mhm.
was just thinking about that whole thing about, me feeling judged with putting the podcast out and then even you with the imposter syndrome. So if we even dive deeper into that, like, why are we afraid? Right? Because you're saying imposter syndrome, that's no different than feel like you're going to be judged for what you're putting out there. So then when you
Yeah.
dive a little deeper into that, well, why do I feel that way? Why am I afraid of being judged? Well, I'm afraid of being judged because it now is going to boil down to my self-worth, my value. I people like me when I present myself in a certain way. And if they now see me showing up in a different way, I might lose friends, I might lose family members, I might lose people in my life. And if if you're not being true and authentic to who you are, then you're going to have a lot of people around you because you're just able to please everybody else and make sure everybody is happy. But the true signs of authenticity and really honing in on who you are as an individual is being ready to have people fall away from you, right?
Mhm.
There are always going to be naysayers in our life, always, right?
Mhm.
But if you feel like you have a good idea and you want to come out into the world being authentic and being real and true and vulnerable and being yourself, then I need you to get ready to lose people along the way. Because I will tell you, the first of all, you're going to be this amazing shining light because you are authentic and real and true to yourself. And a lot of people can't handle that because
Mhm.
when they look at you, they they can't see that in them, and it scares them,
Yeah.
and listen, I'm not telling you that you and I got here overnight. Like, Andrew,
Mhm.
you and I know that our journey and that whole self discovery and getting out of our comfort zone's been happening for a long time. Like, I
Mhm.
remember when my first daughter was born, and this was the point of my journey. This was when it started. Like, when she was born and she was handed to me, the first things I told my daughter was like, I hope you're nothing like me. I hope you're beautiful and you're smart and you have confidence and you can achieve everything in the world. And then, the midwives took her away to weigh her, and I literally was paralyzed, and I thought to myself, oh my god, how on earth is my daughter going to know those things if I can't teach her what those things are? Like, I didn't
Mhm.
even know what that meant. And so that was the beginning of my discomfort. I mean, childbirth was easy
Mhm.
compared to what all the things that I had to face therein after. It was ugly, and a lot of my old programs and beliefs and my inner child stuff came up, but let me tell you how it liberated me. And did it
Mhm.
liberate me to a point where none of this stuff ever came up again? No. It was like 5 weeks ago that I was like, I'm not ready to to put our podcast out. It still showed up. But the beautiful thing is that number one, you have support. So my support is you, Andrea. And when I'm having an issue, especially where the business is concerned, even though you are around for me personally as well, but where the business is concerned is you can snap me out of it, which is great. And the beautiful thing is I'm able to get out of it a lot faster. Whereas
Right.
before I would have probably wallowed in it for an extended period of time where it would just take up so much mental real estate and I would just be sitting there for days and days and days. Whereas it was literally, 15, 20 minutes of you, like setting me up again to understand the value of what we're doing. And then off we went. Right.
Yeah,
So I think that that's the other thing that we need to remember. Like, it's okay if you're not ready now, but the possibilities that can be created when you are ready to step out of your comfort zone are amazing.
exactly. And I think the other thing too is the idea of change, right? So
Yeah.
change is uncomfortable for most people. And
Mhm.
why? Because the definition of it is to alter, to change what is normal or what we know into something else. And I remember when we were starting this business, so I had finished working, or I had left or got laid off from my corporate job. I did a little part-time thing before I had my second child. And then I was pretty much on mat leave with him, and yes, things were tough, but life was sort of, easy, and I was home and I was making dinners, and so as soon as I started to put more attention on this business, obviously that home life started to shift. And my husband was extremely supportive, but it was change for him and it was change for the household. And so a lot of that fear came up for me in like, well, am I going to be able to pick up my kids from school every day? Am I going to be able to take them to school day? I really enjoy doing that. And I want to have a hot meal on the table every night. And these were things that we had gotten used to with me being home most of the time. And and I know, Shar, we talked about this and how that fear of change and that fear of like kind of maybe uprooting some of these day-to-day routines was going to affect not only ourselves but our family.
Yep.
And I think we did it in a very organic way where we were growing at a pace that worked for us. Um and that's why, we've been able to have, maybe a little less stress in that space, but not to say it wasn't there, because any change is going to bring up stress, right? That is the definition of stress, is changing the equilibrium of an organism. So anytime you're altering its state, its homeostasis state, you are causing stress. So
Mhm.
whatever your homeostasis is, whether it's staying in the comfort of this job you've had for 20 years, whether it's staying in a relationship that it's all you've ever known and it's not working, whether it's keeping people in your life that are toxic and uh, taking you into spaces of depression or stress, whatever it is, in choosing to step out of those comfortable feelings. And a lot of times the feelings are not, let's say, positive ones, right? We get stuck in feelings of compliance, maybe feelings of boredom, feelings of mundaneness. We get stuck in those feelings because that's what we know, right?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to add to that because, like I was saying earlier, when we start engaging in these new behaviors and patterns and this learning, I think one of the biggest issues is people start asking themselves or wondering, well, who am I going to be if I'm not a people pleaser?
Yeah.
Right? Who am I going to be if I actually come out and be my authentic self and somebody in my family no longer wants to be a part of my life? Like, who am I without these people? And like I was saying at the beginning, you can be you're going to be okay. You're like, I'm going to say, I'm going to get, sorry, it's a spoiler alert. You're going to be okay. You're going to
It's
be
gonna work
absolutely,
out.
it's going to work out. But when you're in the midst of figuring out who you are and how you want to move forward, it is challenging because it's not only challenging for you because you're trying to figure out this new version of yourself, but other people are like, "Oh, well, she's always done stuff for me," or "I've always used her as a scapegoat, and now I can't." What do you mean she has boundaries? Like, all of a sudden, and I remember even with my mom, like the first time I started, and I mean, in the last podcast, we talked about, how it was a very, I had to work a lot on my relationship with my mom. But I remember the first time I said no to her, I like, not only was I scared to say no to her, but when I hung up the phone, because she was asking me to do something that I just couldn't do, I was exhilarated. Like, I was just like, wow, I feel so free because I just laid down a boundary for myself. And
Mhm.
let me just first of all say I love my mother. I have a really great, open, and honest relationship with her, and it took a long time for us to get here, because most of the work was really on my part, right? Because that generation doesn't really know how to change, if you will. Like, most of the change had to come from me. Like, I
Of
had to be good
course.
with whatever was happening inside of me, and I have a beautiful relationship with my mom now, and we're very supportive of one another. But the first day that I decided that I needed to lay boundaries down, it was like I gave myself a gift. And it felt so good. But do you know what else happened from that? My mom realized that I had laid down a boundary, and
Mhm.
she knew that she could not cross it.
Mhm.
And so she developed a new way of respecting me and my time. So it's like, how they always say you have to teach people how to treat you. Like, you
Mhm.
have to teach them how to do it. And that's what I was doing essentially with my mom, which was pretty cool. I think
Mhm.
that but again, it's not always easy, right? Because we're so used to, as kids, to, we don't want to disappoint our parents and we want to always make them happy. But at the end of the day, it's not our job to keep our parents happy. Our job
Mhm.
is to figure out ways to make ourselves happy and to be able to function in a world that is suited for us first. We're so
Mhm.
much better when we're filling our heart and our soul with light and love and recharging our batteries. We have so much more to give when we're coming from that place of fullness versus people always taking from you and then you feeling resentful and sad and upset and angry. And
Exactly.
listen, that's not everyone has felt that way. I know you have, Andrea, I have. But right, we're learning, putting down our boundaries, and that whole self-awareness piece, like you were talking about. Like, yeah, the work, in order for you to function out in that world, it is an inside out job. You can't go out there and expect the world to look different if you haven't changed. Right? Like, we don't see the world as the world is, we see the world as we are, right? Like, so
Mhm.
as within, so without. So
Exactly.
sometimes when you're finding yourself in a situation where you're not happy with what things look like outside, I would say turn the mirror, look at yourself for a second. What
Mhm.
have I allowed to happen in my life that has got me to this point? Because that's self-awareness. It's being accountable and responsible for the situation that you find yourself in. I mean, of course, it's our thoughts, it's our actions, or our feelings and our reactions to life. But what have I what have I done here to get me to this point?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So that's really important to understand.
Yeah, and I think also what I've learned over time is that when you want something and you want to try something new in your life, whether that has to do with career, whether it has to do with something else. Maybe it's just deciding you're going to put your self-care practice as a priority. You're going to choose to eat healthier foods. You're going to choose to join some exercise program or, start moving your body. Maybe you're going to go take a dance class, maybe whatever it is, whatever you're choosing to add into your life because you believe it is it is opening yourself up to the better possibilities and your true authenticity, whatever that is. What tends to happen is you're going to be tested. Okay? That's just the way the universe works. You're going to be tested, and the universe is going to put a roadblock and another roadblock and another roadblock in front of you to see how badly do you want this for yourself?
Mhm.
How badly do you believe that this is meant for you? And it's in those tests and it's in the witnessing and the awareness of, yeah, this is a test and I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm going
Mhm.
to jump over this hurdle. I'm
Mhm.
going to go through the fire,
Mhm.
right? Because the light on the other end is so bright. And
Mhm.
it might mean that the direction you thought it was going might veer to one side,
Mhm.
it might veer back, but the end goal will still happen. It might look a little bit differently, but it'll still happen. And it might mean you start a little slower. You
Mhm.
don't go from 0 to 100, right?
Mhm.
Nothing happens overnight, that you start slow, but know that you will be tested. You will be put up against yourself and asked, how badly do you want this? And trust me, there were many times that that came up for Shar and I in starting this this company, and a few times where we said to ourselves too, like, do we keep going? What do we do? Do we keep going? But deep down in ourselves, we knew this is what we wanted. This is what we want to be putting out into the world as our purpose. And again, we're talking about this from a place of vocation and purpose. It doesn't have to be that for you. I mean, anything you put out there and anything you do for yourself will be fulfilling your purpose. We are in service on this earth. And so, whichever way you are serving that in your life is on purpose. But definitely sitting back in your comfort zone, allowing other people to take the reins or to take the steering wheel is not
Mhm.
is not part of your soul's contract in being here, right? But you may need to do that for a while before you learn the lesson or before you understand that no, this is not what I want. And
Mhm.
some people, they need the lesson to be served to them over and over and over again. I mean, I remember, Oprah used to say, you first, it starts with the little pebble that gets thrown at the back of your head and you're like, oh, that's sort of hurts, but I'm gonna ignore it. And then the rock, and then the brick, and then the wall.
Yeah. The
So
wall.
everything's coming at you from behind, you're ignoring it, and then you just hit the wall.
Yeah.
And some of us have to hit that brick wall
Yeah.
to understand that I need to make a change. I need to get out of this comfort zone
Mm.
and and do something differently if I want to see different results in my
Right.
life.
Right. So it's that the definition of insanity,
Insanity,
doing the
yes.
same thing over and over again and expecting the same result. And I do believe that people will know when they're ready. Like, you know how I was saying
Yeah.
initially, like you might not be resonating with this conversation right now. You might not be in a space where you can even think about that because, like I said, maybe you're a new parent, maybe you're sleep deprived. Again, I have 3 kids and you have 2, so we know what sleep deprivation looks like and what it
Yep.
does to you, and it might not be the time, but to be open for when that time comes, right? To be open when that time comes to know, okay, I need to step out of my comfort zone. Or now this role doesn't require as much attention anymore. And I can take a little bit of my focus and put it elsewhere. Like that's the other thing, right? To be open.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a big thing. People just think that, you're in a job for 20 years, you go on mat leave, you finish your mat leave, you go back to the job and or your pat leave, whatever it is. But just remember, if you're open to accepting a potential new way of running your life, those ideas will come. You have to be ready. You
Yeah,
really do have to be ready.
exactly. And I remember when a few years ago when the whole, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure it's still a popular thing people are doing, but it was like the 5 a.m. club.
Yeah, I
Everyone
still
was
do that.
waking up. You still do that, yeah.
I
And
still do
everyone was
that.
waking up at 5. I think it was the
Robin
Sharma,
Sharma. Robin
Robin
Sharma.
Sharma,
Yeah.
his famous book, and we love Robin Sharma, another Canadian fella. Um, and I remember thinking, like, I got so into, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a 5 a.m.er. I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna exercise and this and that. But in my life at the time, I still had a young child who was waking up in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
and I would have to s- put him back to bed, or I'd have to bring him in my room, and I wasn't getting a full restful sleep. So in me trying to wake up at 5,
Mhm.
that was killing me. I
Mhm.
couldn't do it. And so I tried, and the get it done personality in me wanted it to work, and I wanted to stick to it. But what I realized is it's not fitting into my lifestyle, and
Mhm.
it was adding more stress than it was even worth. So what did I start doing is not 5 a.m. I was getting up at 7, 7:15. I was setting my alarm for. I was giving myself just about half an hour to 15 minutes before the household got up. And for me, that was able to then start the building blocks to a morning practice for myself. And there's days where I choose to sleep in and I don't do it. There's days I wake up earlier, but I didn't just forget about it. I didn't just use the excuse that, oh, my kid doesn't sleep through the night, and I can't add this self-care practice in my life, because I still saw the benefits of doing it regardless. But I had to change it. I had to alter it temporarily, right?
Yeah.
Everything is temporary. So
And if you
temporarily,
start
but you still try, still do it. Don't let that excuse let you stay in that non-doing.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, wherever you start is a good place to start. Like,
For
you know
sure.
your life. Like, I know when I'm talking to patients, I'll tell them, I'm saying, if you want to start a self-care practice, you know what? Don't even get out of bed. Just put your earbuds on and put on a meditation. Put on a breathing exercise. Put on some sort of guided, supportive audio that gives you some sort of inspiration to wake up, and it motivates you and sets you up for the day. So, you know what? You have to start where you're ready to start. That's number one. And the other thing I was going to say to you is, yes, Robin Sharma's book changed my life. Like, it
Mhm.
really did. However, I am going to tell you, I started practicing his stuff in 2019 when his book came. I think it came out in 2019. But I have fallen off the wagon so many times. And
Mhm.
what I recognize is that when I do fall off the wagon, and I kind of forget that I was getting up at 5 o'clock and doing that prep work for myself before my kids got up. I was doing, like, I really went through the day and functioned in this such a high, a better way. Let's just put it that way. And so when I've fallen off the wagon and I've stopped doing it, I know what happens. I have that resentment that builds up. My brain and my body and my soul and my spirit is looking for some self-love and self-care. And then that's what gets me back on again. And do I start at 5 a.m.? No, because I haven't got up at 5 a.m. for a long time. So I'll start at 7, and then I'll move it an hour. I'll start getting up at 6 until I'm able to get up at 5 and do the things that I need to do for myself. Because in our house, it's an early start. 7 o'clock, everyone's up and ready to go. So I do need to get up and do a little bit of pre, like shower work
Mhm.
before I can, see my kids. And my kids like me a lot better. I am going to tell
Of
you
course.
that.
Yeah,
They like me a lot
we
better
are
when I
so
do
much
a little bit of stuff for
closer.
myself. And that does mean I am going to bed earlier too. So
Yeah.
in my house, it just works out that my husband's a night owl and I'm an early bird. So I can tuck myself in at by 10 o'clock. And if the kids are up a little later, because I've got teens and, an adult in my house now, um, my husband's there to kind of pick that up, right? But
Exactly.
again, it's different for everybody. Like, you
And
just yeah,
yeah,
you just
and your family will get used to it. Like, there's times that I'm meditating in the morning and my son walks in. Like, he wakes up and he walks in and he just looks over at me on my bed and he notices, he doesn't bother me because he just knows Mom's meditating. And yeah, it doesn't mean it does distract me from my meditation, but that's okay. I'm still doing it. I'm still gonna stick to it. And
Mhm.
it's also setting this example for our kids, which I know we've talked about in past podcasts about, showing up for yourself will teach your children to show up for themselves too.
Yeah.
And there you're setting this foundation. And my son will ask me at night, Mom, can we do a body scan? I need to quiet my mind. And I'll talk him through a body scan. Can we do some breathing? And this is stuff that I've taught him since he was like 2 years old, 3 years old. And yeah, there's doesn't happen every night. And I found I have to let him lead instead of me, asking him. But it's there. And the same with my daughter. Teenage life isn't for the faint at heart. Let's put it
Mhm.
that way. And but I don't give up. I still show up for myself. They see me taking my yoga classes and having my self-care routines, and it shows that I'm putting it as a priority in all the things that I'm doing as well. So setting that example.
Yeah, and I think the moral of the story is
Mhm.
meet yourself where you're ready to be met,
Yeah.
right? And if you can find one small thing that you can include in your routine to just take care of yourself, like I said, it could be a guided meditation, it could be listening to a podcast, like while you're cleaning, or on your way to work, or while you're cooking, or whatever it is. Find something small that you can do for yourself. And remember, it's the little things, right, that move the needle. It's the little
Mhm.
things.
And get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, get out of your
Get
comfort.
out of your comfort zone. And I'm going to leave everyone today with this quote. It's by Theodore Roosevelt, but it in me became very relevant in reading the works of Brene Brown. Her book, Daring Greatly, is mainly based on this quote. And I think it just really says a lot, and adds to what we've been talking about today. And it says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold or and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. And that
That's
was from 1910. So I'm just going to leave you with all of that. I hope we have added to your day today, and let us know how this resonated with you. And thank you so much for listening.
Goodbye, everyone. Till next
Bye for
time.
now.